this time, it's not just manpower on ground, but artificial intelligence at the core of stadium operations. At the center of this upgrade is Bengaluru's Chinnaswamy Stadium, where an advanced AI system powered by Stacky's JARVIS platform is being deployed to monitor crowd movement in real time and also detect potential risks instantly. Now, around 300 to 350 AI-enabled cameras have been installed, turning the stadium into a fully connected surveillance network capable of tracking tens of thousands of spectators all at once. Now, the system uses an AI layer over live CCTV feeds to analyze crowd behavior across all stands and entry points. Now, beyond just monitoring, AI is now powering multiple stadium functions. Let's not forget, inside stadiums, AI is being used for crowd control, for queue management, emergency response. It can detect overcrowding, it can predict bottlenecks before they form, it can also identify distress or medical emergencies and help coordinate faster action from security and medical teams. And then it supports smoother match day operations by tracking entry-exit flow and improving overall crowd movement inside the venue. But to understand really how these systems work, how they're built, how they function in real time, and where this technology is headed next, let's go across to our guest joining us this morning. We're being joined by Atul Rai, founder of Stacyu Technologies. Good morning, Atul. Hi, lovely having you on board.
Good morning. Thank you very much for
This is
inviting
the company
us to this
behind
platform.
JARVIS AI surveillance platform. So we'll be going over to him to understand what really is happening at Chinnaswamy Stadium or possibly being looked at by other stadiums countrywide too. The second guest with us is Kumar Rajagopalan, Vice President of Dexian. Good morning, Mr. Rajagopalan. Lovely having you here.
Good morning. Good morning to both of you.
Okay, let's begin with the basics. Atul, I do want to understand from you first, to what extent this kind of technology can come handy. Now, this conversation, of course, is kicked off in the wake of that unfortunate stampede. Several lives were claimed. Very, very unfortunate. So it's been a lesson for all and is why we're acting in this direction. But to what extent can AI-driven systems help in these excessive crowd situations? So can it also prevent a stampede-like situation or just to an extent help in crowd management?
So basically, I mean, the crowd management previously was more like counting the number of people, just like the camera has a tech which basically count the number of people in front of the camera. But when you move towards the crowd management, it is not counting the people, it is also identifying how much space is left, because you want to also identify the density in that area. And that is where the predictive AI comes into the picture, and that is where we start generating the alert. For example, in Chinnaswamy Stadium, there are, let's suppose, 10 gates, right? And 10 perimeter entry gates. So the idea was to identify not only the number of people coming in, but also identify three different things. First, let's suppose, of course, the counting the number of people, then identifying the area. For example, this is called pixel level segmentation in AI, which means you are counting the space, you're identifying the space in which people will move, right? So that was the second thing. And third, of course, is more in terms of identifying the free flow. Generally, a stampede happens or something happens when the crowd is not moving. It is still at a particular location. So you are identifying the motion of the crowd. So if the motion is stable and something happens, it's create a problem. So those kind of basically different things are being done on existing cameras.
So you're telling us that the system can differentiate between a normal crowd surge and a dangerous build-up.
Exactly. So this is what the new basically AI things we introduce to different, of course, this is our third biggest basically, of course, the program or occasion where we are using this. But before that, in Ram Mandir inauguration or G20 summit or similar kind of a scenario, we have done that. So Chinnaswamy introduced this technology there, and that is something which is helping police and law enforcement and security, different security teams also there. In terms of identifying or predicting, like these are the things where the crowd can be enter into the stampede kind of a situation. So that is one of the things. But it's just not limited to that. Of course, you must have heard the news that there was also some phone got stolen inside the Chinnaswamy Stadium on the first day. So we also
not just stadiums, that's a pan country problem.
Crowd,
you know, metro stations, you have railway stations. It's a daily affair,
So in that basically thing, what we did, we also perform a reverse facial recognition. Generally, when you perform a facial recognition, generally people are very skeptical because of privacy and all things, because you have a database and you want to match it. in this thing, what we did, we identified a suspicious people who did that, and of course, we tracked them across the stadium, and of course, we recovered all the 21 phones. And this is first time happened in India that among 30,000 people, you recovered all the phones with everything. So that is something which is where the AI can work, and of course, that is where we are working on the applied AI rather than just making, because AI nowadays is like everywhere. So that's something which
Okay,
we
it's
are tracking
everywhere,
in
but
Chinnaswamy.
is it that easy on the pocket? Is it scalable? I'll come back to
Yeah.
you for more on that. Mr. Rajagopalan, your opening thoughts. We'll go across to Atul once again to understand the kind of money that one has to put in to ensure that these stadiums are well equipped with this high tech. But overall, do you think we can have these systems be replicated in tier 2, tier 3 cities, or this is still a huge infrastructure play which is restricted to your metropolitans?
Yeah, so I think the IPLs, it's one. So which requires that, like, when the fanatical behavior takes place, all Atul said is perfectly great, that, like, nowadays following the game. It's important at this point.
3 cities, or this is still a huge infrastructure play which is restricted to your metropolitans?
Yeah, so I think it's important at this point of time, because now what we have created at some point of time, a fanatical behavior of crowds. So the IPLs and others, what it has done, more than building the interest in the game, it has created the fanatical behavior of following the game. It's one side of it. It is just not restricted to only the games and everywhere. Slowly is like kind of the crowd pulling is very important. Nowadays, the marketing and branding is so important. So which requires that, like, when the fanatical behavior takes place, all Atul said is perfectly great, that, like, it is to some extent it is required in terms of monitoring the crowd, building the analysis of the crowd, like where it is going wrong, so that, like, there is no untoward incidents happen at some point of time. But at the same time, we also bringing the AI into a place where even individuals are being built into, and that's where is like kind of it becomes much more difficult. Because the problem is, like, we are trying to replicate each individual more or less look alike. When it becomes more or less look alike, for example, a CSK team member representing the CSK fan base, everybody behaves like as if something which is great happening and for the CSK, or something bad happening for the CSK.
Yeah.
And that kind of a moment, when it happens, the natural interest in certain things falls down, and the fanatical behavior becomes more prominent. And there is no other way but to kind of use the technology to bring it down. And to some extent, like, kind of now we are into a situation where we are overly dependent on the technology and the AI than the human behavior at some point of time.
Okay, we are already looking at DRS, we're looking at Hawkeye, Mr. Rajagopalan. What's the next frontier of AI in cricket, if I can just quickly swing that question? So we'll deviate a little bit and just ask you this. Do you think we're going to see AI being utilized in terms of, let's say, player fatigue or possible injury risks also? Is that the next big thing?
No, it's like kind of, if I'm not over exaggerating, at some point of time, even it's going to say that at some point of time, 11th over, somebody has to get a tea or a coffee. So it has become to such an extent that, like, it is more or less created a monologue of playing 11. So the earlier years, like, we produced great cricketers, and we followed the great cricketers because of the natural ability, talent, and also the effort which is involved in it. Right now, what has happened is, like, we wanted to create 11 players exactly look alike, play alike, and in the name of a team game, what we have created is like kind of creating a replica of players. And like for the 11 players,
too much over analysis comes with its own dangers, and I think that also is something that we need to watch out for, just not now, in the future as well, because this AI integration is as nice as it is, as easy it makes everyone's life, it does come with its own set of challenges.
Absolutely. Even the crowd now looking at it, like, if the umpire decision is not given.
But there's great level of fan engagement also, Mr. Rajagopalan. So you've got your fans engaged through and through. That long ODI game or a test format cricket, it's not just T20 is still easy to watch. But in other formats as well, it's making cricket a lot more interesting. Stay on with us, gentlemen. I need to go back to the conversation at hand. And put out this report. Afreen Hussain, my colleague, took us inside the control room. Atul will come in on that. But here's what she found out, the nerve center of this AI system, to really understand how technology is stepping in to make match days safer at one of India's most packed stadiums. Here's that report.
What happens when a stadium packed with audiences, high voltage matches and safety concerns collide? The answer is artificial intelligence. And I'm standing here inside the control room, the nerve center where all surveillance feeds are monitored. After the tragic stampede that claimed 11 lives outside the Chinnaswamy Stadium, the stadium has now turned to AI-enabled cameras to prevent any potential tragedies. Royal Challengers Bengaluru proposed to deploy an advanced AI-enabled surveillance system across the stadium in collaboration with video analytics firm StackU at an estimated cost of about 4.5 crore. Under this plan, about 350 AI-enabled cameras are already installed across the premises in the stadium. But remember, these are not just conventional CCTV cameras. Powered by StackU's flagship platform JARVIS, the system integrates video, audio and data analytics to provide real-time monitoring. And to explain more briefly about how exactly these AI-enabled cameras help police and security personnel during high-voltage matches, I'm joined by the business head of StackU, Mr. Aditya. Sir, if you could briefly explain to us how exactly these AI-enabled cameras work, where exactly are they placed across the premises, and how do they work, how do they help the police in crowd management?
So we have deployed almost 350 new cameras, and they have existing 160 cameras. So overall there are 500 cameras that we are running AI analytics on. And with Jarvis, what we're detecting here basically essentially is the crowd management system that we have deployed here. So we have identified some of the key crowded areas like the holding cells, maybe the entry points, the entry gates near the turnstiles, and the perimeter. So most of the cameras over there are AI enabled and will be detecting crowd density. So we map the density based on how many people come in.
Okay, Atul, so we heard your colleague break down some of those details, but give us a sense of whether this can also generate automated response. So can it enable opening or shutting the gates, or some sort of policing intervention without human involvement? Are we looking at that stage, or we're a little further away?
No, we already are at that stage. So
Okay.
basically what is happening here is generating the alert. So AI is basically giving the instruction or maybe the alert to the police force that this is an area which is creating a choke point for many of the people who are entering. So for example, there is one area called P8 or something. So that is where a lot of choke was getting created, and because there's only one basically exit. So AI, of course, also suggests that there has to be one more exit. So just not like it is telling that is a choke point. It is also telling based on the planogram of the stadium that there is one more exit point. Please open that. So AI has entered it to that extent where if you basically give us the planogram of that area and of course the camera placement.
So the system will alert people in the control room. You will not need people with walkies in their hands, coordinating amongst themselves, prompting officials, all that gets eliminated.
So basically there are two things or three things in general when you perform any surveillance. First is perception, like identifying where any kind of a mishappening can done. Second is detection, and third is response. So perception and detection is now being tackled by AI, and the response is something where of course a physical person has to be there. Of course, in future, maybe it will be replaced by robo-dogs or some humanoid, but currently it is being done by police or the security guards. And I think this is what change in the stadium security. Like you have the AI, which is predicting and giving the alert in real time. In general, the stadium takes time of 1 and 1.5 hours to get put empty after the match. But in our scenario, it is just like in 30 minutes, we are able to get all the crowd out of the stadium because of the different kind of AI tech which has been done. Means where the crowd is less, and then basically pushing the people to that area to get the exit. So this is something which can be done only through the AI, because manual effort, watching manually all cameras, giving or suggesting anything is impossible, and that is where AI can play a very powerful role.
Okay.